Good afternoon, Silver Lining Gang. A very, very happy Friday to you all. I hope you're having a fabulous lunch so far. I tell you what, your world's about to get a little bit better with the introduction of this wonderful, wonderful guest. Christina Canters is the founder, creator, curator, director of the C Method, and also is an absolute guru in the world of podcasting. Both her and her partner, Aaron, run Podcast Services Australia and take care of lots and lots of different podcasts for lots of different people. Aside from anything else, the thing that I really like about this character is the way that her brain works. It is something that I've had a hell of a lot of respect for quite some time now. Christina, how the heck are you?
I'm doing even better now after hearing your introduction, Andy. Can I pay you to follow me around and introduce me to people?
You'll have to get in line. I've actually had a couple of those offers, to be honest. But look, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on, Christina. And in all seriousness, one huge thing that I've had a real instant respect from the first moment that we met was your sheer ability to or desire to keep exploring your own mind and the way it works, and to question things, and to keep challenging the status quo within here. I think that is absolutely wonderful. But I mean, we're not talking about activist style stuff, gang. So I doubt she was one of the ones that was kicking off about all the bits and bobs at City Hall and whatnot. But within her mind, she very much is. She's always evolving, which is really, really quite special. Now, Christina, before we kick off, it's always a human first thing. So give us the highlight reel as to who you are and where you're from and what you're about. Let the Silver Lining Gang know all about you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Andy. I'm from Melbourne, proud Melbourneite, although I have lived in various places around the world. I love what you said there. You're absolutely right. I push myself out of my own comfort zone, and I encourage others to do the same. I used to be an architect. That's my corporate technical background. And I was following the path that was set out for me, or so I thought was the right path for me, until I realized that it wasn't the right path for me, and that I got to choose what I did with my life. And I left that career behind and I started my business, the C Method. I discovered that I love helping people to communicate better, and even more so than communicating better, but fulfilling their own potential. And I discovered, having learned a lot about myself, I discovered that I love teaching people, I love speaking to groups, and I found what it was that I was really passionate and good at, and pursued that. And that's played a huge part in my growth as a human. Just learning how to, do what's right for me, and of course I started my second business, Podcast Services Australia, with my husband, and here we are today.
No, honestly, you have definitely found what you are good at. Of that, there is no doubt whatsoever. Your podcast, Stand Out and Get Noticed. It's Stand Out and Get Noticed, isn't it? That's the title of it. Yeah, Stand Out and Get Noticed is a brilliant. It's a brilliant listen. Absolutely fantastic. Sometimes you got some interviews going on. I really like the bottle that you have with the podcast that you do by yourself, the monologue style stuff. And it's really, really interesting because, you would have thought a lot of those sort of monologue styles would be a little bit monotonous, a bit tedious, and a bit how's your father, a bit egotistical sometimes. But the way that you go about them, it's just really, really thought provoking, and it is just so attuned to what it is that you are really, really good at. And like I mentioned in the little preview copy that I did before, it's understanding the communication within yourself as well before you go broadcasting it out. And I think you've really got a fabulous little equation for that within yourself. So now,
thank you.
Christina, you and I'm sure you're happy for me to put this out there. You are also on the way to having child number one. So
yes,
congratulations. So
Thank you.
When are we due?
Late October. It's a Halloween baby.
Oh, jeepers! Jeepers. Right. Okay. So Halloween, baby, and it's your first one. You bought your first house last year, and then obviously loads of stuff has gone on in life and within your own life as well. And
Yes.
there was an exercise that I was fascinated by that you did. I could never do at the back end of last year as well. That I'd love to just dig in just ever so slightly. How has 2020 treated you thus far? Because obviously you've got the macro stuff going on, but then you've got your own life-changing stuff going on. So how's it all been for you?
The start of 2020 was quite rough, to be honest. I think what you were referring to in terms of what I did last year was I went on a 10-day silent meditation course. Is that what you were referring? Oh, no. Okay. Well, that was another thing.
Literally my worst nightmare. Literally my worst nightmare.
So I like to challenge myself and push myself out of my comfort zone. And one of the things that scared me a lot was going on this 10-day silent meditation course. And I did that in December. And it really impacted me more than I gave it credit for at the time. And for me, not December, but more January is I tend to struggle business-wise because things naturally tend to slow down in January, which happens for many people. And I know this, and I know that it's normal, and I know that it happens every year, yet I still go through these mental challenges where I'm telling myself, what's wrong with you? Why is nothing happening? You're not making as much revenue this month as you did, in previous months. And yet it's summertime. You're supposed to be on holidays and enjoying yourself and relaxing because it's the start of the year. Excuse me, my husband's coming in and out.
He's all right.
This is what happens when we work from home. And also coming off the back of Vipassana, the 10-day course, I was just struggling to move back to just get back into my regular life. But then in January, it's not really regular life anyway. And then we moved house Australia Day weekend, late January. So my life was complete chaos. So I was mentally in a bit of chaos. My business was a bit stagnant because that's just what happens. Then we moved house. So I was physically in a place of chaos as well. And it was all, I got quite down about it all. And then I got pregnant in late Jan at the same time. But I didn't know for like 5 weeks. So for all of February, I was getting very emotional. I remember there was at one point I went and got a pedicure and I was there getting my nails done and they were playing on, they play like crappy TV on the, when you go get a pedicure, Andy.
My bi-weekly jaunt to the old nail salon.
The nail salon. When you're at the nail salon, you'd know this. They play, cheesy TV on the screen there, and they were playing the best of like The Voice auditions or America's Got Talent auditions, and I love those talent shows. And I'm sitting there getting my nails done, and I'm watching the golden buzzer get hit, and everyone's like crying, and there's streamers coming down, and I start crying.
Oh, bless.
In the nail salon.
Oh, bless.
Because I'm just so emotional and I don't know why. And I'm sitting there going, they're just so talented. And I was trying to just calm down. And I was like, I don't know why I'm crying. Why am I so emotional? And I think it was just everything that was happening at the time. I felt so out of control. And unbeknownst to me, I was pregnant. So my hormones were going crazy. So it made a lot of sense to me. It made a lot of sense to me afterwards. But it was really fascinating, Andy, because when COVID hit, I felt less concerned and worried and down than when I'd felt earlier in the year. And it was really interesting because at the start of the year, I felt like I was the only person going through these challenges. Yep. I felt quite alone because when you talk to people when you're catching up with people at the start of the year, how's it going? Oh, business is going great. Everyone likes to put on this brave face and like, oh, things are going great. This happened. We've got all these plans for the year. And here's me thinking, I'm feeling really horrible right now. I feel like nothing's happening for me. I feel like my life's in chaos. And when COVID hit, you know what my thought was? I thought, well, you know what? If we're all going to go broke, we're all going to go broke together. And that's way more comforting for me.
Absolutely spot on. I literally had the exact same thought pattern. I'm like, well, we're all screwed, so let's just all do it in unison, right? Like, if we're all on the same playing field, it doesn't really matter. Honestly, and you're right. The
It's
whole
so comforting, to be honest.
the whole thing of in January, such a good point. In January, the volume of people that put a brave face on that turn of the year is quite incredible. It's almost like it's because of the whole, New Year's resolution sort of thought process of, new year, new me, get to the gym, all that sort of stuff. But the reality is that there's probably way more anxiety in January kicking around than anybody even dares to admit. I mean, you always say, like, we've got these grand plans. Well, those plans were fabulous for you this year, weren't they, anyway? So it doesn't really matter about them anyway. They all went out the window. But aside from that, any normal year, people make these grand plans, and the amount of anxiety that they put on themselves in that first month is quite incredible, and can very quickly turn into a very negative sort of emotion. And look, and then everything else that you dealt with, of course. I mean, with the Vipassana, all right. So this 10-day silent meditation. I mean, with regards to how much it really sort of dug into you and affected you. I mean, you said that you didn't really realize it at first, but looking back now from a hindsight point of view, what do you think it was that really sort of altered in your consciousness with regards to what went on? Because just for your knowledge, gang, like this whole Vipassana thing, look into it. It is mental. It is absolutely nuts. It's 10 days and you literally don't say boo to a goose. You don't. It's like, I just get sweats thinking. I just get
Andy, the not talking is actually the easy bit.
Right.
So yes, you're to be silent for 10 days. The hard bit is sitting on your butt and meditating for 10 hours a day.
Nah.
So I know, right? You're up at 4 a.m. You're meditating from 4:30 to 6:30 a.m. Then you get breakfast, and then you're meditating for another 2 hours, and then you have a break, and then another 2 hours, and a break, and then 3 hours, and then a break, and you're meditating, meditate, break until 9:30 at night. And you do that to hey Natasha, great to see you, and you're doing that for 10 days straight. So that is the hardest part. And for me, sitting and not moving was a real struggle, and my body seized up. And one of the things that became clear to me that someone else actually pointed out, they said, Christina, you're naturally very extroverted. I mean, which I knew already, of course. But as an extrovert, I get my energy from being around others. That's why I love working in groups. I love speaking to large audiences. I love emceeing conferences. I love that energy that a large group of people creates. And when you're on Vipassana, you're essentially in solitary confinement for 10 days, because not only are you not allowed to talk to anyone, you're not allowed to acknowledge or communicate with anyone. So this includes no eye contact, no leaving a door open for someone, no writing a note. So, because the idea is that it's so interesting, because you don't realize that we do communicate with people all the time. As simple as, you're in your car and there's a pedestrian and you go like this to go, you go first. You're communicating with them. You haven't said anything, but you're communicating with them. So gestures and polite gestures, like passing someone a fork or holding a door open, all of these things are communication that we weren't allowed to do. So you're essentially by yourself, even though you're physically near others, you are very much by yourself. And as someone who naturally gets energy by being around other people, that sheer isolation impacted me quite a lot, more so than I gave it credit for at the time.
With extroverts, some of the time people can say that extroverts the reason why they are extroverted is, because they haven't really given themselves a chance to either face what's inside or to really have a deep, dark look at your wiring. Did you find any skeletons in the old closet there?
That's a really good question. Look, I think extroverts can absolutely learn to spend time with themselves. And that's something that I've definitely learned how to do as well. Learning to enjoy your own company, I think, is really important for everyone to learn how to do well, to like the person you are and to enjoy, to not need validation from other people. So there is a bit of a difference there. I wouldn't say there was skeletons. Vipassana brings up a lot of different things for a lot of different people. It's a completely different experience. For some people, it can bring up past traumas that they haven't dealt with. For me, it helped me to realize that I was creating my own misery in other areas of my life.
Interesting.
That was one of the key things that I learned. Because what I found, do you want to hear what
100%,
happened?
100%.
So what I found when I was in the middle of this 2-hour meditation, all I could think about was not being in the meditation. I was like, I can't wait until break. I just want to get out of this. This is horrible. I just want to get to break. Then on break, I'd be like, oh, I'm so bored. What am I going to do? It's only been 10 minutes. I've still got another 50 minutes. What am I going to do for this time? And all I wanted was what I didn't have. I found myself longing to not be where I was presently at.
Right.
And I realized it took me 7 days. On the 7th day, Andy, I realized, oh my God, I am making myself miserable by simply not being present and craving to be somewhere I'm not. And I realized that I did this in other areas of my life. Like, simple example, right? It's a super hot day. All you want is for it to be cooler. Oh, I wish it was cooler. Can't stand this heat. I want it to be cooler. Then when it's cold, oh, it's so freezing. I wish it was warm. And what happens is when you're in this state is like in winter, you want it to be summer. In summer, you want it to be winter. You're in this perpetual state of wanting what you don't have. And when you crave, and this is what they teach us in Vipassana, when you crave and attach yourself to something that you don't have, then that creates deep misery within you.
100% it would. And if you relate it to what's going on right now, with all sorts of businesses and human and people and various situations, I mean, the amount of people that have really struggled, with, oh, I just want to go to a restaurant, or I just want to go to a cafe or whatever. And the amount of time that could have been so much more enriching has been spent just desiring the stuff that we've taken for granted, like going out to a restaurant, like getting a coffee or whatever the case may be, going to the sport or what have you. I think you nail on the head with respect to the fact that it's very, very easy to trick down that laneway of focusing on what it is that you don't have as opposed to what it is that you do have. And moving forward, I mean, going into the second half of this year, so gang, if you haven't heard Christina's podcast, the last episode that she's put out around uncertainty is a Monty. I've not listened to it all just yet, but it is a Monty, and you really need to, because I don't think there's any more relevant a conversation that needs to be had either between the ears or with your business partner or with your spouse or your family or whatever the case may be. Because let's face it, we all know and we've all recognized that none of us have got a crystal ball strong enough to work out what's going on at the minute. And just when you think you've got a grip on it, state government, whatever it is, goalpost shift, and then you have to recalibrate again. If ever there was a time to have a conversation about valuing what you currently have, it's now, and being content and working with what it is that you know you have right now. With regards to your own, so if we look at your January, February, found out you're pregnant and all that sort of stuff. When did you become a lot more comfortable, and when did the bits of information really sort of knit together where you thought, you know what, I'm actually, and COVID hits, with your business, if we talk business sort of style for a sec, how did you mesh all that together when you got the relief of like, right, everybody's screwed now, it's all good, we're all in the same boat? How have you moved on since then?
Well, at the time, Andy, I was in my first trimester, so all I felt like doing was lie on the couch and eat potato gems.
Fair play.
So I just accepted that. I saw it as a great thing. I thought, you know what? There's no better time to be in lockdown right now when all I want to do is lie on the couch and I've got my kitchen right there. I can go make myself Vegemite toast whenever I want.
Amazing.
And so that was fine. And something that certainly kept us in a good place mentally, both Aaron and I, is that as business owners, we're constantly prepared for the shit to hit the fan. Because that, like you said, like we can't predict the future. I have no idea if I'm going to get sick or injure myself, or if something happens and we can't work or all our business dries up. And I've been living with that mentality for years now. And I mean, even every single year, my business just drops right down in January. We like to go on holidays, or we used to, and we would go for a 6-week trip to the US and basically not make any money. And then we'd come back and then have to restart all that prospecting again. So there could have been a good couple of months there with very little income coming in, but that's something that we've accepted and we've prepared for. So from a financial standpoint, we've been really diligent in making sure that we have enough financial backup to cover us if we can't work for, let's say, 3 months at least. And that also played a big part in us not feeling really stressed about the situation. And I think this has been such a, like, if anything, as business owners, we need to, even non-business owners, people who are employed, were understanding that very little is out of our control. The government can shut down your business. The government can stop you traveling. The government can stop you from leaving your own home. And we need to be prepared for that. So, it's taught me a lot about just being responsible for your own finances and making sure that you have that backup in place and doing whatever you can. Don't buy that new iPhone. Just don't go out for like fancy dinners, like to spend a bit less money on alcohol. Just do what you can to save that up. And I'm obviously not a financial coach, but that's just something that I have learned, and that's alleviated a lot of that stress during this time.
Right. You're I hate the word expert because I think it's used and abused to death. But I very much see you as such a quality observer of communication and how the world's been going, and I know that you're always very keen on collaborating and communicating with people and whatnot. Since after once the initial shock of COVID was come and gone, how have you found people have been communicating both to yourself directly from a business standpoint and also in the sort of grander scheme of things? What's been your take on the landscape from a communication point of view, across the socials and what have you?
Oh, that's a really good question. I was quite addicted to Facebook for a while there, and normally I don't look at my Facebook feed. But I have really enjoyed seeing people posting. It's not been all doom and gloom. I have really enjoyed seeing people post stories about what they're doing to make the most of the situation. And I think in terms of my own personal socials, just looking at what's been happening, it's been it's been really interesting to see what people are posting about and keeping that positive attitude as well. That's what I've been seeing.
But it's been, I mean, obviously, when we fast forward to the events that have been unfolding, relatively recently, with all of the protests and what have you, and I love your thoughts on this. It hasn't taken long for a heck of a lot of negative energy to come crashing through the waves in terms of combative communication and real sort of aggressive sort of stuff. With respect to the way that you go about it, and when you're taking on clients and you're looking for clients to really communicate their true value and what have you, I think something that I observed, there's something that I can't remember who told me, but that the whole thing of make yourself stand out by being more positively you, not being more negative about someone else. That whole, build your own building, don't tear down everyone else's. How important is that when you're doing your coaching with regards to, how people communicate with their teams and whatnot? Because there's been a lot of stuff that people could whinge about. There's been a heck of a lot of that. How have you been trying to work with your crew members and whatnot with respect to how you can, without fluff? Because neither of us like fluff.
No, that's a really good question. As leaders, we have to be empathetic. Absolutely. And understand that everyone's dealing with their own stuff and that the current situation is affecting everyone all around the world. And at times you might, people might react a certain way that might be out of character for them, or they might appear to be slacking off, or they may not do their job properly. And because we're so self-absorbed in dealing with our own stuff, we tend to think, oh, what are they doing to me? They're not pulling their weight. They're not doing this well enough. But then we need to really take a step back and go, okay, well, what's going on for this person? What are they struggling with? And my response as a leader, because we have a team of people who help us with our podcast, if someone is underperforming, I never say, what's wrong with you? I say, what's going on for you? Is everything okay? And I find that jumping on a phone call and saying, hey, so we've noticed that these things have been happening. Is everything okay? What's going on? So it's because you can't just say to someone, work harder, do better, don't make that mistake next time, because they'll just say, yeah. And then they don't take that on board. And this is a perfect example of dealing with the symptom of a problem and not addressing the real cause. So in the coaching that I do with people, for example, someone who wants help with public speaking might come to me and say, Christina, I ramble when I speak. I ramble. I don't know how to fix it. How do I fix my rambling? I could just say to them, well, just ramble less. Keep your sentences shorter. Pause more. And so that's dealing with the symptom. That's dealing with the end result. But that's not dealing with the real cause. And the cause of someone rambling is they're usually rambling because they feel anxious. And they feel anxious because they're thinking, I have to sound smart or I have to impress these people. So they think they have to say a lot in order to sound smart. So what we do with the coaching methodology is to work on shifting that thought first. So helping them to see that they have something valuable to offer and that they do have interesting ideas and that they do deserve to be in the room. And then that calms them down. And then as a result of them being calm, they then don't ramble. So it's the same with, let's say, a team member who's not performing well or someone who is acting out in a way that's out of character for them. Instead of going, change your behavior, you need to fix that, you need to stop. If we can have some empathy and probe a little deeper and say, what's going on for you? You may find that, oh, well, I've just found out that my cousin's been diagnosed with COVID and they visited me last week and now I'm really stressed because I don't know that what's happening with me, or my mum is really sick and we've got to visit. There's so many things, or like I'm so stressed about my financial situation, and so it's leading me to not check my work diligently and therefore make mistakes. So there are so many things that could be happening. So it's our job as leaders to help our teams and our people to feel reassured, to feel safe, to feel supported, and to listen to them and to help them work through whatever it is that they're going with. That is then creating the less than desirable results.
So much gold in what you just said then. So firstly, what I really love about what you were saying right at the start there is the power of the words that you use when communicating. My mentor and mate, Rick Rushton, he's really sort of banging on about this quite a lot on his thread, and justifiably so. And over the last couple of months, with everything that I've been going through, my self-talk and the language that I've been using within myself has been absolutely critical with regards to dealing with everything that's going on. And what a lot of people, especially if you're in work environments where, you know, English isn't a first language for some of your staff, or you've got different, different native tongues kicking around in the same office and what have you. The words that we use, we've never been more sensitive to them as a society, right? I really believe that, as you beautifully highlighted just then, you can't just go on the offensive, and the words that you say, they do kind of set the framework for how your messages are conveyed. I've been doing a lot of work around the word context, and what you've said there is absolutely spot on. I mean, context, empathy, all goes hand in hand. Interestingly, a theme that's been coming across the channels in this second series about the greatest comeback of the silver lining, a lot of it has been around trust. With staff. Trust has been a word that's been bandied around a little bit recently, and it's been something that a number of leaders have really kind of struggled with. They've really been desperate to try and get them back in the office so they can make sure they know what they're doing and they can see what they're doing and all that sort of jazz. I think empathy leads to trust. If you take the effort to try and empathize, I think it's really hard to just straight out trust someone that you've not needed to trust to that extent, right? From your point of view, when we talk about this whole topic of trust, with respect to earning trust via how you are communicating and whatnot, if you're looking to be a trusted voice or a trusted authority in a certain way, for yourself, what are those key things that allow leaders or team members even to sort of convey that level of trust within their communication? Because this is something that team members have got to come to the table with as well. Because as much as they're like hanging out for trust from their leaders, because they really like working from home now and whatnot, it's got to be a two-way street, right?
Yeah, 100%, definitely.
So how do you reckon we can sort of help to build the trust via how we're communicating as a group?
That's a really good question. So that's something that I've been thinking a lot about as well. I mean, all of our team are remote, so we can't physically be there and watch over their shoulder. And that's not the sort of leader I want to be either. So I need to make sure that my team trusts in me and that I can equally trust in them. And that's been something that we've really focused on when growing our teams. One thing that can help to build trust is doing what you say you're going to do and being consistent with that. And this ties into everything. So, for example, I run my podcast I've been doing every week since 2015. And I tell my listeners, I'm going to be here for you with a new episode every week on a Wednesday, with new content for you. And when I do that, I'm establishing that trust with my audience, and they know, oh yes, Christina, I could trust her that she will put out a podcast every week. When Aaron and I are working with clients to help them set up a podcast, they always say to us, people always say, how often should I release a podcast? And we say to them, look, you need to pick a frequency that works for you and stick to it, because that listener trust, it takes time to build, Because let's face it, if you're looking to build up your visibility as a thought leader or someone with knowledge, let's say expert in that field, you need to have the trust of your audience.
Yeah.
And one way to do that is to do what you say you're going to do. So, for example, if I want people to come to me for coaching and to pay me money to coach them, they're going to need to trust me in my ability that I can do that. Now, if their first point of contact with me is listening to my podcast, I need to show them the type of person that I am in that very instant. So if I shop for one podcast and then I don't shop the next week because I couldn't be bothered, or maybe I do it late, a couple of days later the next week, that message that's being communicated is, Rodney says, turning up is half the success. Yes, I agree. The message that I'm communicating with that inconsistency is, oh, well, if I can't trust Christina to put out a podcast every week when she says she is, how could I possibly trust her to coach me and support me with my challenges?
100%. 100%. That for me is dynamite right there. What you're coaching, because if we talk about the podcast side of things for a little bit, how many people just with content generally say like they try it a couple of weeks and they're like, it ain't working. I'm not a superstar, and they don't understand that there needs to be a level of trust earned, right? And it's not built, it's earned. And the same can be absolutely said with teams. I think providing a degree of predictability around your actions allows people's anxiety to naturally decline when they see at 3:00 on a Wednesday afternoon, they see your name pop up on their phone if they are working autonomously or remotely or whatever the case may be. If they know that call is coming, it's a bit like your mum. Your mum always calls you at the times that you're not expecting, right? Always happens. And everybody's immediate reaction, and this is with your own mum, is, oh God, it's my mom. I don't want to talk to her. You think of any the son to not talk to her. And
I'm not like that with you, Mum.
Oh no, nor am I. Really am. And you know what I mean. So just that having that degree of predictability, and like you said, setting that action in motion ahead of time allows people to come to terms with whatever's going on, in whether it's a preparation or an anticipation of a new episode, or conversely, if your team knows that there is a structure in place from a communication point of view, and you're not just hit and miss, sort of spray and pray style, like calling them on the off chance every random second and whatnot, you're not going to have that level of trust come to you from your team members, and vice versa, right? If you, as a team member, if you know that your boss is going to be calling you at 3:00 on a Wednesday, and they said they've told you, you need to be available for that phone call, because then what do you think is going to happen on the other end if you don't pick up the phone? It means the boss has.
Have you heard of the 6 core human needs?
No.
Tony Robbins tends to talk about it. So he says there are 6 core human needs, and the first need, one of them, is certainty. So as human beings, we have to have a level of certainty in our life, and certainty it's comfort, it's security. And this is why the world's gone crazy, because there is so much uncertainty at the moment. And in my podcast that you mentioned earlier, my latest episode, I talk about how it's important to build your tolerance for uncertainty, but having certainty is one of our core human needs. So, everyone listening, I want you to think about, maybe you go to the same place for coffee every day. Maybe you drive the same way. Well, when you were driving to work, you would drive the same way every day. You would eat the same thing for breakfast. You wear the same type of clothes. All of these things, or you order the same thing at a restaurant every time you go. All of these things we do because we love that certainty of knowing exactly what's going to happen. And it's the same thing as a leader, like you were saying, Andy, to provide that level of certainty for your team, where you're consistent in your communication, you're consistent in how you show up for them, you're consistent in how you support them. Because when you provide that comfort, that certainty for them, they then feel safe. They feel safe and supported. And when some people feel safe and supported, they can then do their work better. If they're constantly in a state of feeling uncertain, unsafe, unsupported, they're going to feel anxious, and there's no bloody way they're going to be able to do their work effectively. Simon Sinek is one of my favorite speakers, and he talks a lot about this around how good leaders make people feel safe. And that's one of the key goals that you should have as a leader.
It's just amazing how, these are core human traits, right? This is not just fluff and stuff that people have just made up to make some dollars off people, right? These are core human traits that, let's face it, in the grand scheme of things, aren't really talked about half as much as what they should be, because everybody's too busy trying to talk about the fancy stuff of the day. So 10 years ago, whenever it was values, and then Simon Sinek, bless his little cotton socks, came up with the whole the three golden circles.
Why? Yeah.
Exactly. And now everyone's banging on about their why, and half of them don't even realize what they're really talking about. And realistically, if we just break it down to real core human mechanics in how people react to certain things, the way that they are done or not done, you will find a hell of a lot of answers just within that. If all you did was just tune into yourself and how you react to certain things when they happen, the answers can be way more simple, way more simplified than what people give credit for, right?
Definitely.
Christina, I love talking to you. You are fab. You're always fab. What I will do, gang, is because we've referenced it a couple of times on the various channels, whichever channel you found this show on, I will be posting the link to the very podcast that we talked about that Christina's done around the whole topic of uncertainty. I would highly recommend that you get onto that and get your laughing gear around that podcast, because it is a wonderful thing to listen to. Christina, before I let you go, is there any sort of final sort of things that you would love to put out there to the world with respect to how they can really create some momentum for themselves heading into 2020?
Ooh, momentum for yourself. Look, take the time to focus on you. If you find yourself with some extra time now, or, if you're still, in lockdown, really take the time to nurture yourself and be kind to yourself. And as I learned to do, just let go. It's not always easy, but working towards letting go of the attachment to things that you don't yet have, the things that you can't have at the moment, and instead practice gratitude for all of those things that you do have, or the things that you have had in the past. So maybe you can't travel right now, but sit down and be grateful for the times where you've been able to travel in the past, because those are things that we all took for granted at the time. So a good gratitude practice is always helpful.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Christina, thank you so much. You're an absolute delight. And I would hope sincerely that this isn't the last time that we see you on this little show of ours called The Silver Lining. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andy, and keep up the great work. And I wish you all the best in the rest of your isolation in your hotel room.
There, almost there.
But you're not craving getting out. You're grateful for what you have.
Exactly. I'm grateful for my city view and whatnot. Absolutely. Christina, you take care. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Andy. Bye.
All the best.